Hey guys, Amanda here at Bare Bones Living, and welcome back to my backyard. And I just wanted to show you guys, give you a little tour of the new garden that I had put in. I know I've been talking about it a lot, and now it's finally happened, and I'm really excited. Literally the minute that the guys left, I immediately planted my tomatoes that were just dying to get out of their pots. And really, they were fine in the pots, but I was dying to get them into the ground. So I'm really excited to show you what we have. So I was going to give you guys a little garden tour and show you what we did. So we'll start over here. And here I have some sugar snap peas. And I'm just gonna leave them in this grow bag here. I mean, they do just fine. They could grow, yes, even taller than I have the capability of supporting them. This is I just put an overturned tomato cage over this bag for them to climb up, and it's worked great. And like I said, yes, they can grow taller, and maybe I'll give them some more supports, but we'll see how that goes. This is the construction of our new garden bed. Basically what they did is they just took out the old garden bed and rebuilt it, except for this one, they kept both of the layers, like both the front wall and the back wall are the same height. And it's just cleaner and obviously not rotting, so that's great. They also shortened the whole bed. Used to come out, it's kind of hard to tell with all the rain and everything, but you can kind of see the stones here. It used to come out to like here, and then we only had this very narrow walkway in which for us to actually walk through to our backyard, because we have this radon detector here. So we opened that up, and we're gonna put more flagstone here and stuff, because right now it's just dirt and, as you can tell, mud. But it just gives us so much more access and opens it up nice and wide for our backyard, so that's great. So what we're doing here is I put this back up for my tomatoes, and I will be using some Velcro to hold my tomato plants up against this cattle panel here to support them. I did this last year too, and it worked really well. So I have that along the back, and I have all of my tomatoes along the full length of that. Right here I have my zucchini plant that you guys saw me putting into a pot about a month ago, and it's doing really well. I got some blossoms in there. And then what I have decided to do is, I have a lot of extra plants this year, and I'm just taking some lettuces and things that I still have, and I'm tucking them in under these plants that I know are going to get really big and tall, and I'm planting these lettuce and things that don't do so well in extreme heat and extreme sun, I should say. And this is it's totally open to sun here, so I'm thinking that these big bushing plants will give them the shade that they need. It's not so much the heat, it's the direct sunlight that makes them bolt. So I just tucked even back behind there. I have some more lettuce plants, and I don't know how well it's gonna work, but like I said, I had extras, so might as well try and see what happens. So this, I believe, is my Little Gem Butterhead lettuce. And this is my red leaf lettuce here. This is my Brandywine tomato, which I'm really excited about. It's a nice slicer. These couple of plants here, I believe, are chard. This tomato plant here is my Dr. Weitch's yellow slicer, which we really enjoyed, and it gave us some majorly beefy tomatoes. And then up in the front here, I'm doing like these multi levels of planting here, as you can see. So these are going to grow tall in the back. Then I have things that I want to stay shadowed and are going to grow small underneath these. And then in the front, I have this basil. This is a sweet basil. So that's doing well. And I trimmed this basil. You can see there, I cut that off. And so the offshoots are growing here. And that's doing really well. Then the Swiss chard and the Dr. Weitch's. Then I have this Genovese basil, which, check this leaf out. I thought it was 3 leaves until I touched it. That's one gigantic leaf. And I haven't actually trimmed this one, so I'm going to, but I'll get around to that. This is my Marvel of Four Seasons lettuce that I really like, and we'll see if that, this is gonna bush up a little bit more than what I have in my green stalk vertical planter. Has more room, obviously, to get bigger and more of a head on it. Then this tomato here is my Amish paste tomato. And I really liked those for making sauces and things like that. More Marvel of Four Seasons all the way around this one. I have some cilantro planted around this plant here. This is my purple Russian tomato. And then 2, I have been pruning the suckers that grow up in here. So you can see where that little sucker was coming out right there in that armpit. I clipped that off. And I do that on my slicers or my larger tomatoes because that just makes this plant take all of its energy and focus it into making a bigger tomato. I don't do that on my cherries and my grape tomatoes because the object there, I mean, a grape or a cherry tomato, the object of that is not to get big. So it just gives me more. Those suckers just give me more of the sweet little fruit that we're looking for. So I have cilantro growing around that. And it's hard for us to grow cilantro around here, but these are doing okay. This one keeps trying to bolt, but hopefully I can get some kind of a nice harvest out of that. Then this plant here is my Brad's Atomic Grape tomato. So again, you can see that I'm allowing this sucker to go. And on this plant, you can see, if I get real close there, you can see the purpling in the stem of this plant. And that's because this variety that has anthocyanins in it. And what that means is that the more that this plant is exposed to the sun, the more purpling comes out, even in its branches and leaves. And then the same with the fruit. Each tomato, the more it's exposed to the sun, the skin will get more purple. So that's kind of fun. Around this, I have some Mizuna mustard growing, but I pretty sure this is all going to bolt, but I just figured I'd give it a shot. This is a blueberry cherry tomato here that I got from a coworker. I'm really excited to try this year. I've never had this plant before, so I'm excited to see these. These are, you know, blue cherry tomatoes, so that's always fun. And then I have some butter crunch lettuce. This is another Mizuna mustard. Then what's really exciting, or at least I'm excited about, these little plants here, these are pineapple cherry, ground cherries, excuse me, which is like, it's kind of like a tomatillo, or it's not a cherry, but they're sweet, and they're kind of like the size of like a cherry tomato. So it's kind of like a tomato, kind of like a tomatillo, but it's sweet. And I've never had these before, but they're supposedly very prolific. And we'll see how that turns out. And I have, I think, 4 of those. Maybe I only have 3. I have these 2 here. I had 5, and then there's one here. I had 5, but a couple of them were really small, and I don't think they really pulled through. This is my sweetie cherry tomato, and I need to start apparently tacking this up, because this is what this plant is starting to lean over, and so it's growing up towards the sun. That's why they're all on that one side like that. And this just happened in like a day. We've just had a bunch of rain, and so it must have just gotten heavy and knocked down. So I'll just come and tack that up, and this will start growing straight up again. But these are like the little red Sweet 100 cherry tomatoes. And around this, I have butter crunch lettuce. In the very front here, I have some bunching onions, and I have those lined all the way around here and down the line to my peppers. So we'll see how these do here. And then the last tomato here, this is my Sun Gold tomato, which is a yellow cherry tomato that I really enjoyed last year. And as you can see, it's a big, nice, healthy, thick stalk there. It's doing really well. I'm also really excited about these plants. This is a purple tomatillo, and I have 4 of these, which is exciting because I grew these last year and I had multiple of them, but then rodents got to them, and then I was only left with 1, and unbeknownst to myself at the time, tomatillos need a partner to pollinate. They cannot self-pollinate, they need another plant. So if you only have 1, then all you have is a sterile tomatilla plant, which is quite frustrating because it's a big, beautiful plant that gives you nothing but big greenery. So I'm really excited to actually have these 4, and I'm hoping that I can keep these 4. And what's in between them is that red vein sorrel. I had a bunch planted in here, and I had them all over in here, but then we had extreme heat the past couple of days, and we weren't the best about watering. So a lot of them have died off, but I still have more, and I'm gonna sneak some back in here. And I'll fill that out, and that'll just be a nice little pop of color in there. And then I have my peppers starting here, starting with my sweet chocolate pepper, which is like a purple bell pepper. Here I have a California Wonder bell pepper. It's more of the traditional bell peppers. Here I have my Tam jalapeno, which is more of just like a classic jalapeno pepper. And it looks like I'm already getting ready to start setting fruit here. I may let those go, or I may clip those off to get this plant a little bit better established. So the deal with plants that are already flowering when you buy them, a lot of people buy them and think, oh wow, I've got this really awesome plant that's already flowering, or it's already even got like a little fruit on it that's growing, and that's like a bonus, right? Because I've got a jump start on it. But what that does is it actually hinders your plant if it's still in its little pot that it's growing in. Because when you go to transplant that plant into the garden, that plant is focused only on producing that fruit that's already on there, instead of worrying about the roots and establishing new roots and really establishing a strong plant. Its focus is on producing that fruit because it wants to create a fruit that is going to fall to the ground and be eaten by chipmunks and squirrels and things like that. And they're gonna go and poop and spread their seeds. So that plant will have babies, basically, right? And it'll spread its seed and the plant will live on. But what I want it to do is focus on growing new roots and becoming just a bigger, stronger plant, because I'm wanting multiple peppers. Another thing that I do to my peppers to get it to produce more peppers is I actually topped all my peppers this year, which I'd never done before, and quite frankly is kind of scary. And I actually started to do a little video on that I'm gonna keep going with to show you just how I did that and the progression of them. Next up I have this early jalapeno, which is kind of funny because this is supposed to be the first producing jalapeno, and it's not doing as well as the Tam jalapeno that's already got some buds on it. But that's okay. And then this is one of my cayenne peppers. This is the red ember cayenne. So I'm really excited about drying some cayenne peppers to make my own cayenne powder. That's exciting. This is my Sugar Rush peach pepper that is starting to bush out really nicely. You can see the new growth in there after I topped that one. This is the other cayenne, the red flame cayenne pepper, which is doing great. And then I have my Highlander Anaheim pepper here. And Anaheim peppers, if you're unaware, are what green chilies, anytime you buy green chilies in a can, those are Anaheim peppers. So that's what I'm gonna do with those. And you'll see too that I have these tomato cages around all of these peppers, because really tomato cages aren't really suitable for tomatoes, because unless you're growing a determinate tomato, a tomato is going to grow right out of the top of that. But it's really great for peppers because this is about how tall a pepper plant gets. So that's everything that is in this new garden so far. And then we also shortened the bed over here, and they just laid some nice flagstone that was, you know, actually up along here. And then they also laid some nice sod. So that is going to be much nicer than the wood chips and flagstone that we had previously. So this is all working together really nicely. I'm really happy with it. And I just wanted to give you guys a little update with that. And then behind there, we have the pollinator garden, which I made a little video on explaining all of that. And then we're getting lots of nice rain today to help settle all these in. So I just planted this stuff within the last week. And it's all doing really great. So another thing that I thought would be really fun to plant in this garden, and this garden is right obviously on our patio. I'm standing on my patio, and it's real close to our house. That's why I like having my tomatoes and my peppers and everything right here, because this is like my kitchen garden. And I have another bigger garden back there, but I just recently actually started using this garden and I really enjoy it. And that's why we spent so much money to get it rebuilt and something that I could really use. But I thought it would be really fun to put some bean plants in here. And beans grow super fast. It's, you know, a lot of them are like 50-day varieties. Like in 50 days you'll be harvesting them. And they're really good to succession sow, which means like every 2 weeks you plant more. And so you're always harvesting more beans to provide for your family. And my kids love beans. So I got a bunch of different varieties of beans, and I've grown beans in the past and the kids love them, but I've always struggled to grow enough beans to actually provide for an entire side for our family. I always get, you know, just a few. So I'm really going to stay on top of it. I also have a hard time because of predators, or I guess they're not really predators, but chipmunks and squirrels and rabbits and things like that. They love to steal my bean seeds because they're literally, to grow a bean, you put a bean in the ground. So they love to come and eat my beans. So, but I'm actually on vacation from work this week, and because of our new sod that we have laid here, we can't go anywhere because we have to water it twice a week to get it to actually place roots and stick. We're gonna be here all week and be outside and in the garden. I'm hoping that that's going to deter rodents from stealing, and we're gonna be doing lots of watering, and it's supposed to be raining throughout the week. So it's a really good time, I think, for me to be planting beans, starting beans, because I'm gonna be out here, and hopefully, fingers crossed, can actually get some plants to grow. So I'm going to be planting some dragon tongue bush beans, which are this fun, and then the pods actually are speckled as well. So that's fun. I'm gonna plant some of these here. I'm gonna leave room. I'm gonna plant these pretty far apart to leave room for me in a couple weeks to plant some more. So I'm gonna plant some of these here, and then I have multiple varieties that I'm gonna plant in this front area in front of these tomato plants all down this row. And I'm just moving this straw out of the way. And you'll notice that I actually put straw over everything, all my gardens. I placed straw over it, and that's really like a twofold reason. One is weed prevention, or weed suppression, I should say. It definitely doesn't stop weeds from growing, but it absolutely helps, because Mother Nature is modest, and if you don't cover her with something, she will cover herself with weeds. And then the other fold of that is water retention. So weed suppression and water retention. If the soil is covered, then the water is not going to evaporate from the sun. So my choice is I'm going to be using straw today, or this year I should say. In the past I've done wood chips and that's worked fine for me, but I really wanted to give the straw a good shot. So I just planted 3 of these dragon tongue bush beans, and now I'm gonna do some jade bush bean. And these are all bush variety beans. Even though I have this trellis that they could grow up next to, I'm using that trellis for my tomatoes. And quite honestly, I'm more concerned about growing tomatoes than I am growing beans, even though my kids love beans. I like tomatoes more, and they provide more for us, and they're more versatile. So I'll plant, I do have runner beans, or in other words, pole beans, and those are the beans that will trellis up. I'm just not going to be growing those this year because I don't have the space for them or the trellis richness space to be growing them. But that's okay. I can actually cover these seeds with a little bit of straw, again to help with water retention. And it's currently raining, so they're getting nicely watered. And the ground is already pretty saturated because we had some really heavy rains earlier. But the bean starts, as they come through, they can easily make their way through this straw with no difficulty. And this is a contender bean that I've grown for quite a few years now. That I really enjoy. I grew these actually in my green stalk last year, and they did fairly well, but they didn't do great in the green stalk, so I decided to try something a little different with them this year. And I've also never really grown them in a full sun environment. I had them in previous years. I've had them in my back garden, which unfortunately is fairly shaded. There's a lot of trees in my neighborhood. And we did the rookie mistake of making our garden beds. We were very anxious. I shouldn't say we. I was very anxious to get garden beds built when we first moved in. And so I wasn't the best at knowing where the sun was coming from. I didn't make my garden bed south facing, which if you're unaware, south facing gardens are the best because then they get the sun the entire time. Sunrise to sunset, they're always being exposed. And that's not what my garden is, unfortunately. And then lastly, I have this Provider green bean. I don't really have high hopes for this bean. I've tried to grow it in the past. This is my oldest bag of seeds that I still have. It's, excuse me, it's gotta be, yeah, from 15. I mean, these are pretty old seeds, but they should germinate. But I can't say that I've actually ever been able to grow one of these plants. So I don't know. They could have been just bad seeds always. But we'll see what they do this year. So again, as I was saying, I have grown beans in my back garden, but I didn't give them the right environment. It's pretty shaded back there. And then again, they are also farthest away from our house. So us letting out our dogs, our presence is not felt as much in the back of the house as it is right up here, up against our house. And it doesn't deter pests as much. So we have a lot more issues with mice and chipmunks and things along the back, obviously, because it's further away and they have an escape route. But this is full sun, so I'm really hoping we can get some bean plants and actually get some successful bean harvests. So I'll just sow these last 2 beans over here and we'll see what happens. So I planted one there and there and there, and then you can see all my little divots around there. So we'll see what happens and how many beans we get to actually pop up here. And then hopefully in a couple of weeks I can come out and do some more. But this is promising. Every year is a new year and a new chance to try something, even if it hasn't worked for you in the past. Thank you guys for stopping by today and joining in on our journey here at Bare Bones Living. We'll catch you on the next one.